Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where we go, damn! That's not just dead. That got hit by a bus and then backed over by a bus, and then a puppy dog came along and pissed on the carcass. Anyway, so in this modern world of LLMs, artificial intelligence, day in and day out, we're told it's gonna take our job, right? And for most of these things, I kind of laugh at it, because again, artificial intelligence is not actually intelligent. Again, it is a piece of functionality that provides, services for platforms or for solutions that you're going to be creating. But for the most part, it's not a solution on its own. And so, yes, jobs are going to go away, but some jobs are going to come, and the whole nine yards. Again, I argue the whole push with AI has more to do with tech founders really needing to get some investment money, more than reality. But in some places, AI can actually, in fact, be very devastating. But I also question, in these places where AI is devastating, is it really that AI is so devastating, or that basically the businesses have been coasting along for so long anyway that it was time for them to be destroyed? So I think about this with Stack Overflow. If you don't know what Stack Overflow is, it's a forum, bulletin board service, or whatever for coders, where you can go and you can ask your coding questions if you're brave enough. I'm not brave enough. Anyways, and then you will get, I don't know if answers is quite the correct term. You will get responses. Imagine if Twitter focused on coding questions, and that's what you get sometimes, which is a hell of a thing. So anyways, you have people, they post their question, and then you get a whole bunch of responses underneath. And then the best responses, or the most liked responses, kind of get starred or thumbed up, and so then you'll get this most liked response, which is generally what you look at. But then you got all these other responses under it too. The interesting thing is the people that are giving responses, they don't necessarily give you correct responses. They don't necessarily give you good or useful responses. You just get responses. And so why a lot of us use Stack Overflow, or use Stack Overflow, is basically when you have a question, right? So if you're using a language, like, again, I don't use JavaScript a lot. So if I'm using JavaScript and I'm trying to do an API call, or I'm trying to do something, I'm not quite certain about how to do it, especially to a particular service. You would type into Google, or maybe even type into Stack Overflow the question. You hope somebody else asked the question previously. You basically get their question, and then you get this list of responses with the theoretically best response, and then you figure out if you can actually use that. One of the things that I found interesting with Stack Overflow, though, even before LLMs came out, was just how kind of crappy the platform was. Again, it was very, I don't know, it was a very 2010-ish idea. I guess it came out about 2009. And so basically having all of these responses and all this kind of very wordy type thing made a lot of sense back then. But as you start to get more and more responses, more and more questions, as it starts to become theoretically more and more a valuable of a platform, it was weird at just how kind of janky I just found the entire process, right? Going there, maybe the response worked, maybe the response didn't work, seeing the snarky responses from other people, sorting through all of these other things. Again, I looked at it and I just questioned whether this was really a great way of basically doing a coding support platform, especially when you realize, again, in the coding world, any problem that you have, most likely 1,000 other people have, or 100,000 other people have. And so one of the things I thought was interesting is they didn't go through and hire writers to go through and do things like create more generic posts. Okay, we see we're getting posts like this about Python connecting this type of database. We've gotten a few of those. So let's go through, and since we're a $1.8 billion company, again, when you talk about things like Stack Overflow, understanding what the money is. So it was purchased by a private equity firm a couple of years ago for $1.8 billion. So this is a $1.8 billion valued platform. And so you would think you'd have people go in and just try to clean up the experience, at least, to make it a little bit more user-friendly. And they didn't, because that's not what tech people do anymore. What? Improve an actual product and make it more useful? Eli, the foolishness out of this man. No, they just have what they have, and they change the CSS every once in a while. They just try to milk it till the damn thing is dry. And so the interesting thing is, right, so you already had a pretty lackluster platform that was basically used because of, one, because of inertia, and two, because it was one of the best things out there. Again, the best of bad options is the best option, right? And so you had it kind of coasting along, but then LLMs come out, and then all of a sudden you can actually ask a question, get a reasonably accurate response, and not get everybody else's snark on top of it. Sometimes I just need to remember how to pull the key value pairs out of an array. I don't need your opinion on that, right? So that's the thing. You go to ChatGPT, and it's awesome. Like ChatGPT, I wouldn't trust it for history. I'd be very careful with it with recipes and things. But the nice thing about coding, programming, is basically, especially if you're just getting a snippet of code, it's very easy to test, right? Okay, I need this loop. So I need to create a loop where I'm going to be pulling information from this data store, this database, processing it somehow, dumping it into this database, blah. The cool part about it is I can just take that code and I can dump it directly into my program. Again, a lot of times when you're asking questions, you already have 1,000 lines of code written. You're just trying to figure out your problem with this little chunk. So you can just copy paste the LLM response in. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you go back through, you try to figure out what the problem is, or you just ask the LLM again until it gives you something that works, right? It's actually a system that works very well. Again, LLMs are terrific for doing computer programming, at least at the small scale. Again, this whole idea of vibe coding, not so hot on that, but for the basic generic issues, makes a lot of sense. Now, what's curious with Stack Overflow is that they haven't seemed like they've tried to modernize for the current time. Again, if you go and you take a look at it, it looks a lot like, it's always looked. Again, if you come here, you can just take a look at just normal Stack Overflow, and it's not quite as bad as Craigslist. Craigslist still looks like it was developed in 1996. I don't know, this looks like it was developed in about 2006. And so I don't think it's really any surprise that basically Stack Overflow has fallen off a cliff. So if you look at this particular article, the article doesn't really matter. They just give us a nice little chart. Stack Overflow is almost dead. This shows the monthly questions asked on Stack Overflow. So back in 2009, that's where they were at. They got to the height in 2014, 2017. They started sliding down. Again, this is an important thing to look at. They started sliding down after 2017. They got a bump for COVID, kept going down. And then when ChatGPT came out, they basically went off a cliff. And so now the questions asked are getting really close to where they were all the way back in 2009. And it's just kind of curious, again, to see the death of an institution. I know if you look at something like Stack Overflow, it's not nearly as big a deal as Google or Microsoft or Meta or any of that. But within its own realm, it was a big deal. But it simply has not. I don't know if you could say it could not. Go with the times, but for whatever reason, it has not kept up with the times, and now it's being destroyed. I think this is an important thing to be thinking about with your business or with your organization, with the services that you're providing. It's that whole idea of intent. Like, what is the intent of your organization? Is the intent of your organization to provide support for coders? Is the intent of your organization to, again, provide a data store or whatever of problems that can be solved with coding? Or is the intent of your organization simply to maintain and manage a platform? Right, so here's the thing, like if the intent of your organization is to support programmers or coders or to act as a data store or anything like that, when things change or just normally, you would be implementing new products, you'd be implementing new services, some would succeed, some would fail, and you're more likely to be able to roll with the times. right? Okay, let's try a little bit of this. Let's try a little bit of this. We'll actually set money aside. Again, as a CEO, remember, a CEO has a pot of money, so they have to figure out where chunks of that money goes. Some of the money goes to the coders. Some of the money goes to data centers and server rooms and that kind of stuff. Some of the money goes for toilet paper. Some of the money goes for a yacht. And some of the money goes for things like art, research and development, right? If all you're focused on is maintaining and managing a platform, how much research and development are you going to fund? Right? Maybe 1%, 2% of revenue, just kind of keep things going. Whereas again, if you're trying to support coders, if you're trying to support something larger than just the platform itself, your research and development spend might be 10 or 15%. As time goes by, which one of these companies do you think is going to be able to survive into the long term? Right? There's always going to be these LLM moments for almost any company. Again, you had Blockbuster. Netflix came in with basically the mail order videos or whatever, and Blockbuster was basically flat-footed. They thought the storefront was the way to go, and they got absolutely destroyed. Again, there's other companies out there. They're like, no, this is what we do. We are focused on this product. And then when the world changes, they just get eviscerated. And so the thing to be thinking about is if you're able to change yourself, like with Netflix, right? Netflix started out as that mail order video company, and now it's a streaming company, right? What is Netflix trying to do? Netflix is trying to deliver video entertainment to the masses at scale in ever less expensive way. Anyways, right? So first they did the video to your DVD to your door. Now they do streaming. Maybe in the future they could change to do something else. Again, Blockbuster, they were all about the storefront. So something to consider with yourself and your organization. Are you focused on that overall much larger mission, or are you focused just on that product or solution? And as soon as somebody comes in and kneecaps that particular product or solution, are you completely and utterly screwed? Is the interesting question. So yeah, Stack Overflow is basically dead at this point, and probably nobody cares. I mean, who out there is like, I have the option between ChatGPT or Stack Overflow. Where am I going to ask my question today? Does anybody actually think that's a real option? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. What do you think about Stack Overflow? What do you think about the death of Stack Overflow and LLMs taking over? Do you think that there's something Stack Overflow could have done to remain relevant? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. With that, see y'all later.